Ugh. Yeehaw, y'all! You excited? Today we are celebrating something. So excited. I got my cowboy boots on. I got some flowers. Do y'all know what's gonna happen? Stay tuned to see. In case you didn't know, my name is Mrs. Lawson here, and I'm so excited to finish up Pecos Bill today with you. Let's go ahead and share my screen and start the story. So we are on our last day of the story, Pecos Bill, and we are working on using details from the text so that we can make inferences. And that's highlighted because that's our big focus. And we're going to make inferences about characters, and then we're going to use those inferences in our brains to identify what is the theme of this story. We know we are successful today when we can identify the characters in the story, when we can make inferences about character traits, when we can support inferences with text evidence, and then when we can identify the theme of the story. So let's go ahead and just review what an inference is, because I know sometimes that word sounds a little tricky. When we're making an inference, we're taking what the text says. So we're taking a detail from the book and we're using our brain to make a connection with our schema, which is stuff we already know. And then we use those two things to make an inference. So your answer isn't something that's from the text on this one. This is something that you're coming up with on your own from your brain. So our suffix work today for foundational skills is working with this suffix "ly." Now, when you are using that suffix, you're adding it to an adjective. So you're going to form an adverb. An adverb is something that describes a verb. So it's how you're doing something, what kind of way you're doing something. So let's look at an example. Down here, you're being lazy, so let's see how we would change that, because you can't say lazily. That doesn't make sense. So we're going to change that Y. We're going to take the Y off, and we're going to add an I. So you were lazily doing something. What's something you can do in a lazy way? I know sometimes you might complete your work in a lazy way. I know none of you fourth graders do that. I know that, but sometimes if you're feeling lazy, you could do something in a lazy way. You could run in a lazy way in PE. There's a lot of things you could do. Now, what about Mary? How would you do that? This is your turn. Yeah, hopefully you figured out that you would take that Y off and it would be Merrily. Let's try one more. So on this one, we have an LE at the end, which it'd be kind of hard to add an LY to. So for these kind of word endings, you're going to take that LE off and then you add an LY. So it's spelled like that. What's something you could do in a gentle way? Well, maybe you're waking somebody up in a gentle way. You don't want to yell at them and scare them. You might just be like, hey, wake up. You're doing it really gentle, right? Now, what's another thing you could do? Let's try responsible. Remember to take off that LE and change it to an LY. So responsibly. I know a lot of you do a lot of responsible things. So that could be something you could easily use in a sentence. Now, here are some others we want you to try on your own. You're going to take off those endings if you need to and add the LY. Remember to look back if you need to at the steps. Good luck. All right, so here are some by the way words you might need to know today. And the first one is a bustle. So a bustle is something we don't really use anymore. It's down here. So they used to wear them, women used to wear them under the back of their dress to support their skirt and make it stand up. So it looks a little something like this. So there's going to be a character today wearing a bustle, and that's going to help you figure out what that is. Another word today that we just maybe don't know because we don't have them here in Kansas is a mesa. A mesa is a flat-topped hill or a small plateau with steep sides. So it has that flat top up here, but it's got also has that flat side. All right, so here's a vocabulary word you should be able to figure out. It's reverted. Something reverts back to how it was. So from the story, here's where it's used. When he finally found her lonely little cabin, he was so love-struck, he reverted to some of his old coyote ways. So what could reverted mean? Yeah, some of you figured it out. Reverted means to go back to return. So if you revert to your old ways, you're just going back to what you already know. What about a catastrophe? Have you ever heard someone say, this is a catastrophe? So from the story, it says, but after a lovely ceremony, a terrible catastrophe occurred. We're looking at that picture. Y'all already figured it out. Great job. A catastrophe is a tragic event with extreme misfortune. So I know right now, some of those hurricanes could have been catastrophes if they destroyed a lot of stuff. It's a connection you can make to real life, which readers are always doing. Great job. All right, let's get on those cowboy hats, and we're taking it back to be with Pecos Bill. So one day when Bill and Widowmaker were bouncing around the Pecos River, they came across an awesome sight. A wild-looking red-haired woman riding on the back of the biggest catfish Bill had ever seen. Wait a minute, she's riding a catfish? What? That is just insane. Let's keep reading. The woman looked like she was having a ball, screeching, "Ride 'em, cowgirl," as the catfish whipped her around in the air. "What's your name?" Bill shouted. "Slewfoot Sue. What's it to you?" she said. Then she whooped away over the windy water. Crazy. Thereafter, all Pecos Bill could think about was Slewfoot Sue. He spent more and more time away from the Hell's Gate gang as he wandered the barren cattle lands looking for her. When he finally found her lonely little cabin, he was so love-struck, he went back to some of his old coyote ways. He sat on his haunches in the moonlight and began a howling and a hooing. Uh-oh. What's happening, fourth graders? As you can see, the author is showing us that Pecos Bill is in love. What? So how does he show us that Pecos Bill is in love? Let's look back. So just take a few. What hints, what things is Pecos Bill doing that shows you he's in love? Well, right here he meets her. What's your name? So later on, you're going to be doing this on your own. You're going to be answering this question. Just look down here in this area. See, how does he act after he meets her? I think you'll find something there. Man, that's crazy. All right, on this page, we're paying attention to why does the author describe Sue's ride on Widowmaker as a catastrophe? Oh no, we heard that catastrophe means something bad happens. So Sue's ride on Widowmaker, something is going to happen that isn't good. Well, the good news was that Sue had a bit of coyote in her too. So she completely understood Bill's language. She stuck her head out her window and hooed back to him that she loved him too. Consequently, Bill and Sue decided to get married. Y'all figured out what we're celebrating today. On the day of the wedding, Sue wore a beautiful white dress with steel spring bustle, and Bill appeared in an elegant buckskin suit. But After a lovely ceremony, a terrible catastrophe occurred. Slewfoot Sue got it into her head that she just had to have a ride on Bill's wild bronco Widowmaker. "You can't do that, honey," Bill said. "He won't let any human toss a leg over him but me." "Don't worry," said Sue. "You know I can ride anything on four legs, not to mention what flies or swims." Uh-oh. Bill tries his best to talk Sue out of it, but she wouldn't listen. She was dying to buck on the back of that bronco. Wearing her white dress with the bustle, she jumped on Widowmaker and kicked him with her spurs. Oh no. Well, that bronco didn't need any thorns in his side to start bucking. To beat the band, he bound up in the air with such amazing force that suddenly Sue was flying high into the Texas sky. She flew over plains and mesas, over canyons and deserts and prairies. She flew so high that she looped over the new moon and fell back to Earth. But when Sue landed on her steel spring bustle, she rebounded right back into the heavens. As she bounded back and forth between heaven and earth, bouncing back and forth, Bill whirled his lariat above his head, then lassoed her. But instead of bringing Sue back down to earth, he got yanked into the night sky alongside her. Okay, fourth graders, I'm just imagining this all happen, and it is the craziest scene I can think of. So, she gets bucked up in, and it was so forceful, she shot all the way up over the moon and back. And then Pecos Bill's trying to save her, and he lassos her, and then it pulls him up into the sky, too. Wow. That's crazy. So, why do you think that the author is saying that this is a catastrophe? Why is this something awful? Well, this is probably, people say your wedding is like the best day of your life. Is this the best day of their life anymore? Probably not, because they're stuck between heaven and earth right now. They're bouncing back and forth. It kind of changed the mood of their whole day. It was super happy and great. And then this happened, and it's scary, and we don't know how it's going to end yet. So the horse tossed her so high, she looped over the new moon and bounced between heaven and earth. It's just crazy. So he tried to save her, and now he doesn't know what's going to happen either. Oh my goodness. Well, together, Pecos Bill and Slewfoot Sue bounced off the earth and went flying to the moon. And at that point, Bill must have gotten some sort of foothold in a moon crater, because neither he nor Sue returned to Earth. Not ever. Folks figured those two must have dug their boot heels into some moon cheese and raised a pack of wild coyotes just like themselves. Texans will tell you that every time you hear thunder rolling over the desolate land near the Pecos River, it's just Bill's family having a good laugh upstairs. When you hear a strange ah-hoo and in the dark night, don't be fooled. That's the sound of Bill howling on the moon instead of at it. And when lights flash across the midnight sky, you can bet it's Bill and Sue right in the backs of some white, hot, shooting stars. That was kind of crazy. So, just like other legends, this story is telling us how things come into being in the earth. So, we found out how the stars ended up in the sky, and then we found out why the sea was salty. Here it just told us this whole story with Pecos Bill. They're telling us right here Why we have thunder? They think it's because Bill's family is laughing. And then they also told us when we hear howling at night, it's really Bill's family. And then also the thunder or the lightning, that's just Bill and his family too. So this is also a legend and tells us how things are the way they are. So we've already talked about that stuff. Right here, how does the author describe Sue? What kind of character is she? And remember, we're not trying to do the temporary, she's happy, she's sad. What kind of person is she? Let's look back in the text. What's she like? It says right here, I really want to look back, actually. The thing that sticks out to me most is right here. She said, you know, I can ride anything with 4 legs. What does that tell you about her? Yeah, I think, guys, you're right on track. I think she loves to take risks. She has a lot of courage. I definitely think that that's her because this is the first example, right? She rides the Bronco, Bill's Bronco. Then at the very beginning, what was she riding when we met her? That was kind of crazy too. What was she riding? The biggest catfish Bill had ever seen. So she is not afraid to take risk. She is very brave and courageous. So that is definitely some of the examples I would use to describe her. And we use details from the text because we went back and found the catfish and the Bronco. All right, so what do we think the theme is? We've been working on theme, and do you guys remember what it means? What theme is? Yes, it is the lesson the characters learned. So I don't think that they really learned a lesson here. They're happy up on the moon. But something that I learned from these characters would be to be confident in yourself because Bill is very confident in himself, and so is Sue. So I think that a big theme in this book is self confidence. So let's look back. What are some examples of how the two characters were really confident? Let's look at this one. Do you guys see any examples? Man, you guys are just so on top of it. I definitely think Sue is a great example of self-confidence, like we just talked about. She had so much courage. She believed that she could ride Bill's wild Bronco. So right here. And Bill's like, no, let's not do that, honey. And she's like, don't worry. You know I can ride anything on 4 legs, not to mention what flies or swims. So there's one example of self-confidence. Down here, Bill has some self-confidence too, right about here. So why don't we reread that and see if you can figure out how is he confident? But when Sue landed on her steel spring bustle, she rebounded right back into the heavens. As she bounded back and forth between heaven and earth, Bill whirled his lariat above his head, then lassoed her. But instead of bringing Sue back down to earth, he got yanked into the night sky alongside her. Now, I don't know about you guys. I've never taken a rope and got it around somebody. That seems pretty hard. So I think that he definitely had self-confidence when he's like, she's shooting back and forth between heaven and earth. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to save her. I'm going to get this rope going and I'm going to catch her. So that's definitely some self-confidence there. And the last example is these Texans, the people from Texas. They have some very confidence in what right here. So it says, folks figure these two must have dug their boot heels into some moon cheese and raised a pack of wild coyotes just like themselves. Whoops, silly Miss Lawson. Texans tell you that every time you hear thunder rolling. So every time you ask a Texan, they'll tell you this, and they're confident in it. Just what we were talking about earlier. What was the legend telling us about? That Pecos Bill is the reason for the thunder, and so is Sue, right? So they are confident in the fact that they're up there and they're the reason for the thunder and the lightning. Great job, 4th graders. Man, I'm so impressed by you. All right, so your reading response today, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but now it's your turn. how does the author show us, so that's big underlined, that Pecos Bill is in love with Slewfoot Sue? So you have to go back onto this page, maybe other pages, and give me details. How does the author show us that he loves her? Fourth graders, give me a big old yeehaw! We finished Pecos Bill today. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.